the 48 hours after Donald Trump dropped a bombshell ultimatum at Davos, $1.2 trillion didn't just leave the stock market, it evaporated. Now, this wasn't some garden variety market correction. The media told you it was jitters over geopolitical tensions. They were dead wrong. This was the first move in a coordinated wealth transfer, a pre-planned heist designed to siphon money straight from the retirement accounts of Main Street. Today, I'm showing you the proof. I'm going to lay out the breadcrumbs they left behind, show you exactly where that money went, and explain how you can get yourself on the right side of the next great financial earthquake. Because what happened after Davos, it wasn't a panic, it was a playbook. Section 1. The official story versus the real story. On Wednesday, January 21, 2026, Donald Trump took the stage in Davos, Switzerland. If you were just watching the mainstream news, it looked like a victory lap. He was boasting about economic growth, about beating inflation, about a secure border. And the markets seemed to play along. After a little wobble, the major indexes actually closed slightly higher. The Dow and S&P 500 both ticked up about 0.8%. Headlines were talking about a rebound and calmed fears after Trump made it clear he wouldn't use military force to get Greenland and would seek negotiations instead. But if you only read the headlines, you miss the real story. What the media called a victory lap was, according to a growing number of analysts, the perfect cover. See, they want you to believe the market is just this chaotic, emotional beast driven by breaking news. They want you to think a 400-point pop in the Dow is a good sign. But what if it's not? What if the real action, the moves that actually matter, are happening just below the surface? The theory that started bubbling up in the hours and days that followed was a whole lot darker. This wasn't about celebrating gains. It was about setting the stage for a massive hidden transfer of wealth. The narrative suggests that while regular investors were being soothed by green numbers on the screen, the big sophisticated players were quietly and deliberately executing the largest capital rotation in modern history. They weren't selling because they were scared. They were repositioning based on information you and I don't have. They were getting out of what you think is safe, your stocks, your 401k, your digital assets, and into something else entirely. This story isn't about a market crash. It's about a quiet, methodical draining of the system before the real crisis hits. And it all kicked off with a threat that wasn't made at the podium, but behind closed doors. Section 2. The investigation, the breadcrumbs. To get what really happened, you've got to look past the public theater and start following the breadcrumbs. These aren't just wild theories. They're a string of documented events that, when you put them together, paint a very disturbing picture. A picture of immense pressure, raw power plays, and the silent, massive movement of money. Breadcrumb number 1. The ultimatum. Publicly, Trump's 70-minute speech was part economic chest-thumping and part a blunt offer to negotiate for Greenland. He took military force off the table, which gave the markets an excuse to rally on the surface. But the real message was in the subtext. He framed his entire agenda as an America First ultimatum, taking allies to task over trade and energy while flexing America's economic power. He kept praising tariffs as a powerful tool, signaling a major shift from military threats to all-out economic warfare. While world leaders were reportedly stunned, investors who could read between the lines got the message loud and clear. The age of predictable global trade is over. Volatility and economic friction were now official U.S. policy, but the theory goes deeper. It suggests the real ultimatum wasn't even about Greenland. Davos is where the global financial elite meet in private. It's where the real deals get made, far away from any camera. The speculation is that the message delivered in those back rooms was a direct warning to the global financial order about the future of the dollar and the independence of the Federal Reserve. It was a signal that the old rules were out the window and a fundamental reset was on its way. The public speech was just the background music for a deal being cut in the shadows. Breadcrumb number 2. The Federal Reserve under siege. To understand why that threat was so credible, you just have to rewind 9 days. On January 12, 2026, the financial world got hit with a bombshell. Federal Reserve Chairman Jerome Powell announced in a video statement that the DOJ had served the central bank with grand jury subpoenas. A criminal investigation was being opened. The official line was that it was about cost overruns on a building renovation. Nobody bought that. Powell himself called the investigation a pretext. He said, point blank, "The threat of criminal charges is a consequence of the Federal Reserve setting interest rates based on our best assessment of what will serve the public, rather than following the preferences of the president." Think about that timing. A sitting Fed chairman, for the first time in history, gets put under criminal investigation by the administration, just days before the president is about to meet all the world's financial heavyweights in Davos. This wasn't some audit, it was a shakedown. It was a crystal clear message to the one institution that controls the money supply. Get in line, or we will break you. To the smart money, this was a 5-alarm fire. An attack on the independence of the world's central bank is an attack on the stability of the entire system. It means the currency itself could be turned into a political weapon. And when that happens, smart money doesn't stick around to see what's next. It heads for the door. Breadcrumb number 3, the money trail. And that leads us to the big one, the $1.2 trillion. This number isn't a stock market crash. The indexes, like we said, held up. This number, according to the theory, represents the gross outflow of capital from U.S. stock and bond funds in the 48 hours right after that Davos speech. This wasn't your cousin panic selling his Tesla stock. This was institutional money, pension funds, sovereign wealth funds, the private fortunes of the global elite, moving gigantic blocks of assets out of the digital system. While you were watching the Dow tick up 400 points, they were cashing out. They were doing it in a way that wouldn't crash the market but would let them sneak out the back door without starting a panic. They sell into the rally. They use the good headlines as camouflage. They let the small retail investors feeling good about a green arrow on their screen buy up the very assets the giants are dumping. It's the oldest trick in the book. Create a story of stability while you engineer a massive cash grab behind the curtain. The question isn't whether the market crashed. It's where did that unbelievable amount of money, that $1.2 trillion in sophisticated capital, run to for safety? It didn't go into other stocks or bonds or even crypto. The breadcrumbs lead to one of the oldest, most tangible assets in all of human history. Section 3. The destination, a mountain of silver. That money didn't just vanish, it moved. It ran for the one asset class that can't be printed out of thin air, can't be devalued by a politician's decree, and can't be frozen with a keystroke. It ran to physical precious metals and specifically to silver. For months, the silver market had already been flashing huge warning signs that something was up. In 2025, the price of silver went on an absolute tear, surging nearly 150%. One report even noted a 144% rise for the year. That's not a normal market move. That is a fundamental repricing. Then, in the first 2 weeks of 2026, before Davos, it went nuclear, jumping another 25%. The mainstream story will tell you this was all about rising industrial demand for green energy and AI, or maybe a buying surge from Asia. And yeah, those things are factors, but they're just a tiny piece of the story. They're the convenient excuse that hides the much bigger truth. What was really happening was a structural accumulation of physical silver by the world's richest and most connected investors. They saw the writing on the wall. They saw the political instability, the unprecedented attack on the Federal Reserve, and the weaponization of economic policy. So they made a cold, hard calculation to move a chunk of their wealth out of the digital financial system and into a hard asset they could physically hold. So why silver instead of gold? Because silver is the high beta version of gold. It's gold on steroids. With the same amount of cash, you can control a much bigger physical position. But here's the real kicker. The physical silver market is a tiny fraction of the size of the stock or bond markets. A move of even a small piece of that $1.2 trillion into physical silver wouldn't just nudge the price, it would shatter the market completely. Supply would simply evaporate. And that is exactly what reports started to show. Analysts were calling it a structural accumulation that blew past the famous silver squeeze of 2021. By mid-January 2026, spot silver prices were blasting through all-time highs, surging past $90 an ounce. Forecasts from major banks that once seemed crazy, with targets of $100 to over $160 an ounce, suddenly started to look conservative. This move wasn't a bet on silver's industrial uses. It was a vote of no confidence in the financial system itself. The wealthy weren't buying a commodity. They were buying an insurance policy. They were buying an escape hatch. While the average investor was being told to buy the dip in their favorite tech stocks, the global elite were quietly stacking bars of physical silver, getting ready for a future where paper promises might not be worth the paper they're printed on. Section 4. The why, the grand design. So why? Why would they pull off such a massive, silent rotation? Why drain liquidity from the stock market while propping it up with happy headlines? The answer is as simple as it is brutal: to transfer your wealth to them. You have to understand the playbook. This isn't about blowing up the market all at once. That's messy. Even the elite can get burned in that kind of chaos. No, the modern strategy is much more elegant. It's a slow, methodical siphoning. Step 1. Create systemic instability. You openly attack the independence of the Fed. You signal a new era of unpredictable trade wars. You create deep, structural doubt about the future of global finance. This gets the smartest players, the ones with the best info, very nervous. Step 2. Engineer a quiet exit. While you're broadcasting a message of strength and stability to the public, you help the smart money move out of paper assets and into hard assets. You use the market's own complexity to hide these giant outflows. The market stays flat, maybe even goes up, so the retail investor feels safe. His 401k statement looks just fine. Nothing to see here. Step 3. Trap the retail investor. The average person's retirement account is almost all in stocks and bonds, the very paper assets the elite are sprinting away from. When the institutional money is gone, who's left holding the bag? You are. The liquidity is gone. The buyers of last resort are the pension funds and 401s of everyday people who have been told to stay the course. Step 4. Pull the plug. Once the transfer is done and the smart money is safe in hard assets like silver, the real crisis is allowed to happen. Maybe it's a currency crisis, a debt crisis, or some geopolitical event. The system, now drained of its core liquidity, is incredibly fragile. The market that was propped up can't hold itself anymore. It dives, and it takes the retirement savings of millions of Americans with it. The same people who were told everything was fine. This wasn't a correction. This was a deliberately engineered wealth transfer. It was designed to drain the retirement accounts of the masses before a planned demolition. The goal wasn't just to protect their own wealth, it was to buy your wealth at a massive discount. After the crash, they can use their preserved capital, now sitting in assets like silver that have skyrocketed in value, to swoop in and buy up the wreckage of the stock market for pennies on the dollar. They drain your account, then they buy your best assets from you for cheap. It is the greatest transfer of wealth in modern history, and it happened right under our noses, hidden behind a meaningless 400-point rally in the Dow. Section 5. The empowerment, the solution. You're probably feeling angry right now. You should be. That feeling that the game is rigged isn't a conspiracy theory. It's a rational conclusion based on the facts, but anger without action is pointless. The goal of understanding this playbook isn't to get mad, it's to get smart. It's to stop playing their game and start playing your own. So what do you do? How do you protect yourself? How do you stop being the one left holding the bag? First, you have to change your mindset. Stop thinking like a retail investor and start thinking like the institutions. That means you stop chasing hot stocks and listening to the talking heads on TV who are paid to keep you in the system. Their job is to be the exit music for the elite. Second, learn the difference between currency and wealth. The dollars in your bank, the numbers in your retirement account. That's currency. Its value can be printed and inflated away. Wealth is real, it's tangible. Throughout all of human history, true wealth has been held in assets that exist outside the centrally controlled financial system. The global elite know this. It's why they're running to physical silver. You need to ask yourself, what percentage of my savings is in real, tangible things versus digital promises? Third, pay more attention to the breadcrumbs than the headlines. Don't watch what they say, watch what they do. When a Fed chair gets put under a criminal probe, that's a signal. It's more powerful than any GDP report. When world leaders start using phrases like economic friction as official policy, that's a signal. These are the real risk indicators. The market's daily swings are just noise designed to distract you. Finally, you need to become your own financial sovereign. This doesn't mean you need to be a Wall Street genius. It means taking control, educating yourself on what money really is, and diversifying in a way that truly protects you from the whole system going down. This might mean owning physical precious metals, investing in productive land, or holding assets in different countries. It means building a financial fortress that can survive the storm they are all preparing for. The name of the game is capital preservation first, growth second. They're counting on you to stay asleep. They're counting on you to keep your money right where it is, to trust their stories, and to play by their rules. The single most powerful act of rebellion is to wake up and move your wealth outside of their immediate control. The story of what happened after Davos is a wake-up call. It's a peek behind the curtain, if you want to keep pulling that curtain back, to understand the hidden mechanics of how wealth is really moved, and to learn the strategies you can use to protect yourself and your family, then you need to be here. Subscribe to this channel and ring that notification bell. Every week, we break down the playbook of the financial elite. We don't use speculation, we follow the money. We expose the traps they set for regular investors and reveal the strategies they use to protect themselves. In the coming weeks, we're doing a deep dive into the physical silver market, the coming digital currency trap, and the specific steps you can take to build your own financial ark. Don't get left behind. The story of the $1.2 trillion isn't just a number, it's a playbook. It's a blueprint that's been used over and over again to systematically move wealth from the unprepared to the insiders. From the dot-com bubble to the 2008 financial crisis, the pattern is always the same. Create a crisis, spin a false story of stability, provide a quiet exit for the connected, and leave the public holding the bag. What happened after Davos in January 2026 was just the latest chapter. But this time you have a choice. You can stay a pawn in their game, the liquidity for their escape plan, or you can see the board for what it really is. You can learn to read the signals, understand the strategy, and take action to protect what's yours. They want you to think the system is too complicated for you to understand. They want you to feel powerless. But the truth is, their playbook is brutally simple once you see it. Now you have a page from that playbook. What you do with it is up to you.